In this video you will see what Alesund is like. The following maps show where Alesund is located. It is located at the top of Norway's western fjord country. Alesund is spread over several islands stretching into the Atlantic. June to November is the wettest time of year in Norway. For drier weather, visit it May, which has the least amount of rainfall. We are here in August with cloudy skies and rain. Regardless, it is a beautiful city to visit. Are you up for a hike? There are 418 steps from the Byparken Town Park up to the Mt Aksla viewpoint. At the top, there is a restaurant and a viewing platform for incredible views over the city and the surrounding mountains. Stroll through the streets of one of Norway's most unique cities. A devastating fire in 1904 left much of Alesund in ashes. Alesund was rebuilt in Art Nouveau style. The rebuilding resulted in a city that contains some of Europe's best examples of Art Nouveau architecture. Because of rain, We took the city train, which gave a city tour, and went up to Mt Aksla. Enjoy a fjord cruise through pristine nature in a dramatic, rugged, varied and historically rich fjord landscape. The fjords are surrounded by steep mountains that rise up vertically from the fjord with peaks reaching 1,700 meters above sea level. Alesund is a perfect base for hiking and driving adventures deep into Norway's fjords, lakes and mountains.
Viewpoints over the waters here. So some of you might have found those as you went out exploring. Now right in front of our bow we've had a rainbow appear a few times and disappear again, and the sun is coming up on the valley. But pretty much right in front of the bow, we're getting a bit of a look of the Sunmore Alps. So as we leave Alesund here behind, right in front of us, it's quite dramatic mountainsides and cliffs. And this is the rugged peaks of the Alps in this area. So these have some peaks that reach 1,700 meters or 5,600 feet straight up from the fjords. So that's the beautiful Sunmore Alps straight up of the bow in front of us. Now, through millions of years, the shifting glaciers dug out fjords, and we'll speak about that in a little moment as well. And the valleys and fjords left behind included these magnificent peaks and summits of the Alps in front of us. You find golden eagles soaring here, deer tracks as well. They attract many skiers in the winter who climb to the top with snowshoes and then ski down again. They have an annual festival here in the summer, the Nature Festival, and it includes Northern Europe's steepest mountain race, which you'll also find over there in the Alps. Okay, so on our starboard or right hand side, there's quite an interesting little piece of land just off of the main island here that looks quite dark and burnt on the floor. So once again, on the starboard or right hand side, we've got these little red and green huts with their piers going out into the water, and then a piece of land which looks slightly dark on the bottom there. So this is called the Slingingsballen. It is known for its world record for the place where they put the world's tallest man-made bonfire.
Oh, yes.
And it's actually incredibly impressive. It was done in June. They do it in June every year. The bonfire that they do build here achieved the Guinness World Record in 2016. And it was 50 meters tall.
I know. We're trying to see. Bonfire right now.
So the bonfire is quite unique because it's built by hand by locals without any special tools. And now since then it is a cherished tradition. They do it every year by towering wooden pallets on top of each other. And what's quite funny is last year I was on board this ship and we went past the bonfire in June just before they lit the bonfire. So they were building the wooden pallets on top of each other. And I got a phone call from guest services saying, the guest is wondering, where's the palace? Where's the big palace you were talking about? And I was like, no, the wooden pallets, wooden pallets, not palace. So this has taught me to articulate even more than I would before.
My question is a bit more.
Now, as we're turning this corner here, we're getting hit by a little bit of wind, and this explains, unfortunately, why our bow is not open today. But we will try again later in the cruise to have the bow open at another opportunity. So you'll see a couple of islands as we go round, and these islands on our starboard and port hand side, and we'll talk about a couple of them on the starboard side in a moment. But Alesund itself is actually an archipelago, which means a collection of islands which are connected by bridges, but also underwater tunnels. And then all the towns from individual islands eventually join together to make the modern day city of Alesund. Each island has its own burial grounds, revealing the culture and historical importance of that particular island. And the island on our starboard or right hand side is the island of Hesse. You can see the residential areas down on the flatter part of the island on the starboard or right hand side. However, behind it you can see this very prominent mountain there. So this is on the starboard or right hand side, the island, with the flatter area of residential houses and this big mountain right at the edge of it. So this is Sukkertoppen Mountain, which translates to Sugarloaf Mountain or Sugartop Mountain. So it's a very prominent, very picturesque mountain here, located very close to Alesund.
Ladies, who stood right in front of us?
So that's the one on your starboard or right hand side. If the bow is 12 o'clock on a clock, you're looking at about 2. So this mountain reaches an elevation of about 1,051 meters, which is nearly 3,500 feet above sea level. It's got a very distinctive shape about it and really stands out against the surrounding landscape. It is very popular for hikers. And this mountain became more prominent on maps in the 19th century as Norwegian explorers mapped it as a way to identify the travels into Alesund and the fjord that we're on. Because it has an incredibly distinctive silhouette here, which does make it a valuable landmark for navigation. So as we do make our way further out of the fjord here, we'll talk a little bit about Alesund's history. So it's a fishing town of about 45,000 here. And they say it's been inhabited since the Viking Age. Now, Alesund received trading rights back in 1793. However, it took about 60 years before any major growth started, and its market town rights were given in 1848, and that's really when they started to see it build and grow. Because the location here, once we go round the corner where we were docked, is quite sheltered as a location, which made it great for the fishing industry, particularly the herring industry was very, very large here. And that meant that Alesund could really start to develop its economy. So many of you have probably heard of another Norwegian area called Bergen. Anyone heard of Bergen before? Yes. So for a long time, any rights to trade and export had to go through the city of Bergen itself. However, the founders of the town of Alesund ensured that it was given rights to trade and export without going through Bergen. So because of this, Alesund's growth really goes at the same time as Bergen started to decline. Now Alesund's got this fantastic natural harbour. It started to grow very quickly. You've got the rich fisheries, the harbour bringing people all around the world here. And eventually fish processing factories were established and steamships began docking in Alesund. So larger factories were built here. Now we spoke about it a little bit in the port talk yesterday. That was yesterday. But a major turning point in Alesund's history was back in 1904 when a devastating fire destroyed much of the city. They believe the fire began in a small wooden house on the island of Aspoy, which is just behind where we were docked in Alesund. They do believe the fire started by a kerosene lamp, and it spread very quickly through the densely packed wooden buildings. And they packed these wooden buildings so densely, really, for heat purposes. As you can tell, we're here in the summertime, and even today it was pretty windy and pretty cold. So imagine living here all the way throughout the year. So they built the town back then so densely populated, really to protect people from the harsh climate around them. However, when a fire breaks out, it does not go in your favour at all. So within a few hours, the fire took down about 850 houses, leaving 10,000 people homeless. So of course they've now got to rebuild from scratch. And with support from the Norwegian king and the German emperor, Alesund was rebuilt in a very ambitious Art Nouveau style, which gave the city its distinctive character that you would have seen today. It's got ornate fronts of buildings, it is colourful, there's towers and turrets as well. It does look like a fairy tale area. Now, after the invasion of Norway on the 9th of April 1940, Alesund was not immediately occupied. It was actually a free territory during the initial phase of fighting in Norway. And the government used Alesund coastal radio station to communicate with the United Kingdom. And because of this, Alesund was heavily bombed in 1940. And after it was occupied by German forces, Mt Aksla was used for those military fortifications that we spoke about earlier. So the waters we're currently sailing in are part of the Fjord system. We're right on the edge of the Fjord, which is now behind us. And that is where you would find the Sunmore Alps that we spoke about earlier. And that is an arm off of the Fjord. So the Fjord is a 68-mile or 110-kilometer long fjord. The name literally translates to big or great fjord. And it branches off into several smaller fjords, including the Geiranger Fjord, which is a very famous fjord in Norway. If you are in our crow's nest, looking at the boat on the port side, it's taking a little bit more of a wobble than we are. And I'm very grateful we're up here. So the landscape around the fjord we're in is very rugged, isolated, steep inclines, covered in woodlands and waterfalls that you can also see along our port or left-hand side. And it's funny because sometimes in the middle of the summer we see no waterfalls at all. It's so dry. So when a bit of rain comes in, it also helps the beautiful landscape as we sail out. Now the Sunmore Alps, which are now directly behind the stern of the ship, home to the fjord, actually had some quite important and famous visitors over the years. Emperor Wilhelm II of Germany, King Oscar II and Queen Wilhelmina of Holland. There we go. And many others from the European area. And they were coming here to search for a scenic, exciting destination, and that's exactly what they found over here. Now, Norway has over 1,100 fjords, but how are fjords created? So you find fjords in locations where current or past glaciation, so when glaciers retreated, extend below the current sea level. So how does that work? Glaciers, they tend to form when you've got coastal mountains, a good source of moisture, and climate cold enough. Now, as the Earth rotates, you have winds moving from west to east, so the chances for glaciers are better when the ocean is to the west of land with coastal mountains. This is because the wind blows over the water, it collects the moisture from the west, brings it up and drops it down over the coastal mountains to its east in the form of snow. And then as it does snow, the ice compacts and packs over years, and then you'll find the glaciers forming high in the mountains. Now, as the layers get more and more compact, they get very heavy, and the heavier they get, eventually the ice becomes too massive and gravity starts to pull it downhill and it carves out the mountainside. Now, if it does carve down to a level where the sea is higher, they then wash in and fill the fjord that's now been created and carved out by that glacier. Now the island on our starboard or right hand side, about 2 o'clock on a clock if the bow is 12. So on our starboard or right hand side, this is the island of Godoy. This is the furthest offshore island from Alesund. You can see it's not incredibly populated. They use a lot of land for farming over here, for fishing and fish processing. They're the main industries off of the land. And a variety of wildlife is found here, such as red deer, otter, harbour seal, American mink as well, and white-tailed eagles. Now, if you do start to look over to our starboard or right-hand side, as we clear Sukatoppa Mountain, you'll see a couple of islands now in this archipelago. So these islands are connected by the fixed link known as the Alesund tunnels. So these are submarine tunnels that connect the islands to the mainland. The first two tunnels were opened back in 1987, and the Godoy Tunnel, which is the island we can now see on our starboard or right hand side at about 2 o'clock on a clock. This opened in 1989. And this big first subsea tunnel system in Norway. This project cost about 780 million Norwegian krone. And I'm just going to convert that. Which is about $70 million. Now the Godoy Tunnel, the subsea road tunnel that connects the island we can see on our starboard side to its next island, the smaller one right in the middle here. That tunnel is 3,844 meters long, which is about 12,500 feet long. And it reaches a depth of 150 meters or 500 feet below sea level. So it's amazing what we can't see. So these islands that we can see over on our starboard or right hand side are home to many interesting monuments from the Vikings and the Middle Ages. There is a local legend that Rollo the Viking king, he went on to become the first ruler of Normandy, was born on these islands on our starboard or right hand side. He went on to conquer Normandy in the year 911 AD. So very powerful families born on these islands here. But traces of human life during the Neolithic age and wildlife stretching back more than 30,000 years have been found in the caves that go more than 300 feet into the cliffs off of these islands on our starboard or right hand side. Now over on the port or left-hand side, the island furthest away with this great waterfall through the middle of it, has an area you can see slightly cleared. So the island over on our port or left-hand side, if you do have very good binoculars, you might be able to have a look into the mountainside. But the area is really known from World War I because they used it and created coastal fort defences in the mountainsides. So they moved to the local village in 1941. They used the school as a temporary headquarters, and the local population had to take part in constructing these forts. The workforce was about 140 men, and they created firing positions, prison camps, command bunkers, and anti-tank positions. A number of tunnels and holes were built into the rocks for storage of ammunition as well. And the number of Russian prisoners was usually around 60, but at one point up to 120 over here. So whenever sailing around Norway, we always do say keep your cameras ready and your eyes peeled for whales and wildlife, especially as we go further up towards Tromsø and Honningsvåg as well. But there's lots of seabirds around here, and they also have the white-tailed eagle as well as golden eagles. So really, what's the difference if you were to see them? So your white-tailed eagles are generally larger than your golden eagles. They have a wingspan that is half a meter long. They fly with flatter wings and they flap them more often, whereas the golden eagles soar and circle slightly more. And white-tailed eagles have a white tail with a pale head, whereas golden eagles have that brown head with golden feathers on the back of their necks. So you may see them flying around these islands. So coming up on the port or left-hand side, you're going to get another great photo opportunity down one of the fjord arms of the Store Fjord here. So we're keeping our fingers crossed for later on in the cruise for a phenomenon that you might see when you're sailing Norway. Can anyone guess what that is? Yeah, the Northern Lights. And I know, even in the summer, there are chances. We actually did get a glimpse of them last cruise. Tonight, the KP level, which tells you the amount of solar activity in the area, is only on a 2 tonight. And with this amount of cloud cover, probably not this evening, but don't worry, we'll keep an eye on it as we go. But there's a lot of folklore from Norway that centres around mythical beings like trolls and giants, but also around natural phenomena like the Northern Lights. So how does the Northern Lights work? The sun sends out lots of tiny charged particles called solar wind. And when these particles reach Earth, they travel towards the North Pole and South Pole, where the Earth's magnetic field is the strongest. When these particles collide with gases like oxygen and nitrogen, they light up, creating beautiful colours and patterns in the sky. So the best places to view the northern lights include Norway, Alaska, Canada, Iceland, Sweden, Finland. I even saw them in England this summer, which was a first for me. But we will keep our eyes out. However, in Norway, there are plenty of myths, legends, and folklore. And in Norse mythology, the Northern Lights is believed to be Bifrost, which is the burning bridge connecting the realm of the gods to Earth. So if you do see it, that is what you're seeing. The bridge connecting the realm of the gods to Earth. So once again, if you are on the outside decks and haven't been blown away, you're going to get a good view down the fjord on our port or left-hand side with some dramatic mountains on either side. But as we sail out, we're going to come out and go round Godoy Island to the right. But before I finish today, I'll leave you with a couple of fun facts about Norway. So the national symbol is actually rather exotic. Can you guess what it is? It's the lion. Norway has won more medals in the Winter Olympics than any other country. There was a Viking king who became the first king of Norway called Harald Fairhair. And probably one of the most interesting facts you'll ever hear. There is, or Norway have, knighted a king penguin. Yes, they have. King penguin Sir Niels Olav was originally appointed as the mascot for the Norwegian Guard at Edinburgh Zoo. So you might be able to go visit him when we go to South Queensferry at the end of the cruise. He's quickly moved through the ranks. He became a corporal in 1982, knighted in 2008, and he's now a brigadier. So a fact that none of you needed, but you're very welcome. So folks, I'm going to leave you to enjoy your evening. As we do sail out now, we're going to come around towards the starboard or right hand side around the island of Godoy. In about 15 minutes, you're going to pass the village of Alnes with the Alnes Lighthouse, one of Norway's most famous lighthouses because of its proximity to Alesund here, and it's been in operation since 1852. Tomorrow, the weather looks like it will be partly sunny throughout the day, highs of 16 degrees Celsius, which is about 61 degrees Fahrenheit. I wouldn't celebrate too early because you never know with the weather up here.